So right before the podcast started, there was mention of a premature baby, which is something that happens occasionally in the human species. And I started to tell a story about how in medieval times in Europe, bears were on the hit list of the Catholic Church in a major way because of the pagan bear cults of Europe that were so dominant that, like, imagine today if you said, what's the king of the beasts? Like, what would you say?
King of the beasts?
King of the beasts.
Probably go with lion.
The lion, yeah. I mean, that's like the universal king of the beasts.
Right.
Well, before, about 1,000 years ago, especially in Europe, king of the beast would have been the bear because of what anthropologists have labeled a very controversial idea, but what they have labeled the circumpolar bear cult, which basically everywhere that there's bears north of the equator, there is this like consistency in the way that humans have ceremonialized bear in like really strange and wild ways, which gave rise to these bear cults and actual bear worship in Europe. And about 1,500 years ago, the Catholic Church, one of their primary targets, cultural targets, like today, like a cultural target for, I won't even speculate on what that would be for a church today, but one of their main targets was bears. And literally, I've recently read a book about this, and literally there were
I feel like I've read
marketing campaigns against bears. And one of the things that was written by a medieval author, circling back to a premature baby, is that bear cubs are born in the winter den and weigh less than a pound. And per the calculations of big game mammals and how big their offspring should be, a bear's offspring is like way smaller. And it's this like deep biological strategy because they have their cubs in the den. The mother has to sustain herself and the cub through the spring without urinating, defecating, or leaving the den. And so they have this strategy of delayed implantation where they have this tiny premature cub. Coming back to this story. You with me?
I'm with
everybody. With me? You with me, Brent?
Oh yeah.
Okay. These medieval writers marketed that the sow bears were so lazy, carnal, and lustful.
Wow.
Plug your ears.
Wow.
That
a lot of accusations.
They were so burdened by pregnancy because they couldn't mate again with their lovers that they just spat their young out of the oven way before it was done. You with me?
I'm following, yeah.
So this like biological reproductive strategy of having these little bitty cubs was marketed as bears are bad and you need to quit your pagan heathen cult of worshiping them, which, I mean, I'm all for not doing that. But welcome to the Bear Grease Render podcast.
How did I tell you to end those kind of stories?
And then I found $5 on the ground. Me and Brent were just in Montana, and he told some, I told some that were just flat stories amongst the group. And Brent was like, when you tell a story that dumb, you should end it with, and then I found $5.
I'm going to tell you where I learned that. From the lady that gives you so much grief about mushrooms in your chili. My wife.
Your wife.
Yeah.
Do you put mushrooms in your chili?
I did once.
I love mushrooms.
In your chili?
Not in the chili.
That's spaghetti sauce.
I put mushrooms in just about anything. My oatmeal.
Pipe.
So your wife taught you to say, like, if you end the story and people are still like,
yeah,
they're like, well,
yeah.
I mean, what happened?
Where it came from was I'd tell her a hunting story or something that we would find. Oh, that's good. And she's like, I'm still waiting for the
Where's the
part where
punchline?
Louis Vuitton comes in, or what's his name, Louis Vuitton, whatever his name is. She's waiting for that.
Yeah.
The Lululemon part of the story. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's it. She said you should always end one of those with, and then I found $5.
Yeah.
It
I'm finding
works.
out a lot of my stories in that way. But welcome to the Bear Grease Render. Today we have Brent Reaves of the This Country Life podcast.
Here.
It's been a while since you've been here. So good to see you.
Thank you, buddy.
We got Josh Landbridge, Spielmaker,
I'm here. I'm in pursuit of a turkey.
in pursuit of a turkey. And we got Lake Pickle, my good friend
the
Lake
Pickle.
Robert Lake Pickle.
That's
the
it.
Robert Lake Pickle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we've got a lot to cover today. Big time. Had a big time podcast hit the airwaves last week.
Yep.
Want to talk about?
Yep.
And just in case you're new to this, man, our feed is not getting any more simple to understand. But on the Bear Grease feed, which typically a feed would just be one podcast
Right.
and there'd be one thing, but not here.
us.
Not us. We have the
Unconventional.
Bear Grease podcast, which is our documentary style podcast, which we're going to talk about this true Bear Grease is what I call it, of this Confessions of a Former Outlaw.
Mm-hmm.
We have that. We also have this, which the Bear Grease Render is where we gather up and have a kind of a traditional style podcast where we typically will talk about last week's Bear Grease. But we also have Brent Reaves, This Country Life podcast every Friday.
Yep.
What is the This Country Life podcast? Would you describe it in a word? I didn't think you could. Moving right along.
It is. No, you can't do it in a word for sure. Not one word.
No.
It is an amalgamation of my life and those around me. And it's anything culturally significant in my life, which could be riding a tricycle off a porch as a child or a grown up. But anything is this country life. It's actually this country life. It's my country life and my friends and observations about living in the country. And the country could be a trip that we went to New York City, just my observations and how I view the world and how the world is viewed by people like me and folks that I know, and stories that have some type of roots in place, in place and family. So it's not a hunting and fishing show, but we talk about hunting and fishing. It's just really an Americana. If you want to do one word, Americana is probably it.
I like it.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
Yeah, I've never sent somebody to Brent's podcast that didn't like it, and that's the truth. I think just about anybody in the world could listen to it and
I appreciate it.
and like it. 'Cause
Very
it's just
entertaining.
entertaining.
Yep.
It's just
Yeah.
entertaining. Always entertaining.
And it's one of those podcasts you don't have to sit down for 2 hours and listen to. They're usually about 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of people listen to it going to work, coming
Yep.
home from work, whatever. Some folks save it up for road trips. Lake has memorized a lot of them. He
Good
calls
for you,
me on
Lake.
the phone, puts them to music, and sings them back to me a lot on my voicemail.
Mm-hmm. I put them to auto tune.
Please stop doing that, Lake.
No promises.
But it's a lot of fun. I'm very blessed to do this, man. But here it is, opening day of turkey season. We're recording this, and I'm sitting in here with you, a guy that gets paid. For two guys that get paid, 3, 4 guys that get paid to hunt and fish. It's opening day of turkey
I
season.
kind of have qualms with that
and we're sitting in here.
labeling. I don't think I get paid to hunt and fish.
Yeah, because I'm going to have to reframe that too. Because if I agreed to that, I would have to do some real explaining to my wife. Because I've done a lot of explaining myself out of that I don't do that.
Yeah.
She thinks I just play all the time.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
It is opening day of the Arkansas and Missouri turkey season, and we're all here.
Yep.
But we're splitting from here and heading pretty quick to our haunts.
Yep.
The haunts of the wild turkey. Man, so Lake, if I don't know what Lake does with his life, it's hard to say what he does. He works for Onyx,
That's true.
and what he does for Onyx is hard to say. It's possible that Onyx is like in some sort of money laundering scheme because I know a lot of people that work for Onyx and it's like they do a lot of stuff.
He's on my feed every day in everything. I open it. I turn on the old Google machine, and there's Lake.
Yeah, they're feeding him.
Daily.
They're feeding him to us
daily.
Hey, but Lake Pickle is a true Southern turkey hunter. This guy right here is a turkey hunter. But Brent's a turkey hunter too. But I always talk about Brent. But Lake's a turkey hunter.
The turkey killer,
and has hunted with some of the iconic turkey hunters of North America, primarily Will Primos, who I'm talking about. That's kind of the reason I know you is through
Wilbur.
I mean, that's pretty much why everybody knows.
I will accept that label. Yeah, no, if I'm known through Wilbur,
that's a good association.
Being known through Wilbur, that's fine by me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more.
So what do you do, Lake?
Little of this, little of that.
What do you do for Onyx?
Moving on.
That you can talk about.
Yeah, no, I'm a the easiest term would be like a marketing manager. I was doing social media strategy for pretty much the whole of the 3 years I've been there, and then recently changed from that into doing more of a marketing manager role. So mainly focusing on me personally. We got a couple of different marketing managers, but I focus on the waterfowl side. So work with ambassadors, work with a bunch of corporate partners like Ducks Unlimited and places like that. And marketing strategy, which has been a learning curve, but it's been fun. It's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, have you got that call? Now, I told the guys before you got here, Josh said that he liked that Phelps Prime Cuts call.
I tried like 12 different, and I'm a novice at using a mouth call. But as a novice, I put 10 or 12 different calls in my mouth, and at the same time, I say if 3 reeds are good, 30 are even better.
Stack the odds.
I put that call in my mouth, and that's the one call that I could make sound realistic, and it was like easily you could manipulate it and make good like it has just the right amount of rasp, and you can manipulate it real well.
Well, Lake, when he started using that call, and that's my call in that Prime Cuts pack. And I know as much as it hurts, Lake, to say that something with my name on it was good. I said before you got here, I said, Lake's not playing around. If he's using it, he likes it. He's not trying to butter anybody up. Because if somebody's really serious at something, you can trust them to not just like use it to like make you feel good or something.
Yeah.
And I know how serious you take turkey calling. So you like that call though.
No, I do. I fall into, when it comes to like mouth yelpers, which turkey calls, diaphragm calls, people call them, I fall into a problem with, I blow a bat wing style call a lot. And so I find myself, I'm comfortable with that. So I get the same tone with my yelping all the time. So if I can find one that I can blow and it gives me a different tone, I like that because that means I have something to switch
something
to.
Just to throw at them that's different.
Put the old razzle dazzle on.
Yeah, just like, hey, they ain't heard this yet.
Right.
Now, I heard Brent call that a cottonmouth cut, which I don't think is a cut. I think maybe have you ever heard of that before or seen a cut like that?
Hold that up.
It's
yeah.
I mean, so when you're talking about diaphragm turkey calls, you don't have to know what cut it is. But, there's double reed, triple reed, single reed, and there's all these different cuts that are on basically the bottom reed. The reed closest to your tongue is cut in a certain way, and it gives a cut tones. What kind of cut is that?
Man, I mean, it looks like somewhere between a bat wing and a ghost cut. And I'd never seen one like it, honestly, which is why I was like, man, I don't know if I'll be able to make a turkey sound on this or not, because I'd never used one that had a cut like that, but I ended up liking it.
Here, hit us with it. Just give us a little sequence. Give us a little purr, a little whistle. That sounds good, man.
Yeah, it does.
To me, when I find a call that I like, and that's the reason that we made that one, is that I can purr on it and make those soft noises, but also get a good raspy cut. And a lot of times it's like one or the other.
Yeah.
At least with me, that's the way it's been.
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Oh, you had to do one call for one thing and another for.
Yeah, it's like, well, that's my. I mean, you could always yelp on any of them or cut on any of them, but like my best raspy cutting call was this one, and then, well, if I want to make soft purrs, it's got to use this call. But that one, I seem to be able to get all the sounds out of them.
I'm the same way. It's like the only thing that I can't do well on that is kiki, but I can't.
Oh, really? On that one, you can't.
That's the only thing.
Okay,
but I'm willing to take that compromise because that's about the same. Like the only mouth call I can kiki on is a ghost cut. So I mean, used to that.
Okay. Have you've turkey hunted quite a bit this year? Well, maybe not as much as usual, but you have turkey hunted.
Oh yeah, as much as I can. Yeah.
How many have you killed?
3.
3. Where?
Killed one at home in Mississippi. Killed one in Texas with my wife, and then I killed one in Tennessee last week.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now you didn't kill one in Florida?
I did not.
You were there while a bunch of some turkeys were killed.
Where we go in Florida, we've been able to go to for a number of years, and Lacey has been burning me up to go there, which I understand. But it was a situation where I wasn't in the driver's seat to be able to do any inviting. Last spring that we were there, the guy was like, "Man, bring your wife next year." So this year, Lacey went first, and then Jordan's wife went, and then Jordan went. And by the time I got the gun, we had one afternoon and was able to hunt till like 7 the next morning. So I tried, but didn't pan out. Yeah. But Lacey got one. So
yeah,
good for her.
Yeah.
How many states have you killed turkeys in?
91.
I think I want to say like 23, maybe
23 states.
I think so.
That's pretty sporty.
I think so. Yeah. I would, man, honestly, the whole 49 state thing for a while, like probably 2022, I was trying to hit that pretty hard. And then it seemed like everyone and their cousins started trying to do it too. And then me and Jordan Blissett, who y'all know, we would have these trips every year where we'd try to hit a couple states. And we'd get to this point, man, where we weren't even really enjoying the hunting. We would just try to get this state. All right, let's get our stuff and let's jump to the other state. I was like, man, that ain't it.
Kind of missing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I still, like, if I have a spring where I'm able to hit a new state, awesome. But I'm not breaking my back to see how quick I can do it.
Have you killed all the subspecies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Except for Gould's. I hadn't done that.
Yeah. I've just got 2 Easterns and Rio.
Mm-hmm. How many states have you hunted in?
Kansas, Missouri, Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama. I've killed turkeys in all of them. And Mississippi. Did I say Mississippi?
Not yet.
I've killed turkeys in all of them.
So a lot of the southeast states. Just kind of the places you can drive probably pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, man, I'm looking forward to hunting. Me and Lake hunted, and I almost wanted to tell that story, but I thought about saving that story for the turkey stories episode for next year.
Yeah,
I thought I thought it could work, so I'm torn.
As quick as it happened, it did have enough turns in it to make it funny and memorable.
Yeah. So
it's a good story.
I'm
Make them wait.
Torn. Make them wait.
Tease.
Yeah. Well, what's your best story from this year? Do you have a good one?
Yeah,
besides our hunt.
So I could tell the one from last week in Tennessee is the way I was actually talking to a buddy this morning. I told him the story. I said the best way I can explain this is I've never so finely ridden the line of you screwed this up, and oh my gosh, how did you hold that together? And so
that's my everyday life.
Look, man,
driving down the highway.
Yeah.
So I was with my buddy Gary Stanton, and we were in a place.
Oh, Muscadine bloodline.
Oh yeah,
that's some good boys.
Man, yeah, me and Gary know each other because of turkey hunting.
Is that right?
Yeah, we had been on phone calls with each other, and then they had the COVID year. They had to cancel touring, and I'd met the dude in person for the first time at an airport in Maine, and me and Jordan picked him up in an electric blue Hyundai rental car, and we hunted for 4 days. But we've been buds
in Maine.
Since. Yeah, we've been buddies ever since.
Oh yeah, I like. I talk to him not often enough.
Yeah,
he's a good guy.
So Gary had me up this place in North Tennessee, and My morning was made before the turkeys even hit the ground, because I'm sitting there and turkeys are gobbling, and then a bobwhite quail started whistling on the edge of this field. I'm like, this is great.
Oh, golly.
So the turkeys hit the ground, and I figure out real quick I'm in a flock situation. I'm like, oh my gosh, this flock situation has followed me from home. Everywhere we went, I've been dealing with flocks of turkeys. And so they don't do anything. And we're like, let's make a loop around, and we end up going to the clear other side of the property. We cross this steep creek, climb up to the top, and hearing turkeys. But I told Gary, I said, man, I've not had a turkey gobble at me all morning. Like, I'm here, like, other than like a hoot owl or a crow call, but not at yelping. I'm like, man. And I was telling them, I said, this has kind of followed me from home. They've just kind of been in that mood. They're staying in flocks later than I've expected them to. It's just kind of been like that, and kind of easing down this ridge. And I put that call in my mouth, and I yelped kind of mid-volume one time and nothing, and then I got on it pretty hard, and yow, 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 pow, and turkey jumps over it. And I looked at Gary, I said, that's different. And the problem is he gobbled from right down that creek that we just came up from. And I said, Gary, can you tell what side of the creek he's on? He's like, mm-mm. And I said, because he was, right there on it. So it's like, is he on our side? Is he across it?
How far?
180. So not like on top of you, but like close enough that you're like, if he is on our side of the creek,
Yeah.
And so there was this little bitty finger ridge that was steep, and I'm like, man, if we make an ease up there, and if he's on the other side of that creek, there's this little meadow. I was like, maybe I can glass down there, possibly see him, because I'm still thinking, I'm not thinking gobbler by himself at all. I'm thinking wad of turkeys, because that's what we've been dealing with.
Yeah.
So he's up at Finger Ridge. I glass down that meadow. I don't see anything. I yelp again. He jumps all over it. Same spot, sounded like. And I'm like, man, I don't know. And then I wait a few seconds. I yelp again. He doesn't gobble at all, which when I hear that, I'm like, he's doing something.
He's either leaving or coming.
Yeah. So I said, I'm going to sit down right here, Gary. So I sit down, and Gary drops behind me about 30 yards. And I sit there. And as soon as I sit down, I look, and this ridge has turkey scratching everywhere. I'm like, good sign. The problem is we sat there for like 20 minutes, and I didn't hear that turkey again. I didn't hear him drum. I didn't hear walking in the leaves.
Man, what is wrong with a courtesy gobble? Just every now and then.
Just let me know.
Just a courtesy.
And I'm sitting there going, I'm like, I've only got 2 days. This turkey, and I'm just in my mind, I'm convinced he's on the other side of the creek. And I'm like, that turkey's on the other side of the creek.
That's the other side of the creek, someone else's property?
No. We can hunt it.
But you don't think he's going to cross it?
Yeah. It's a big creek. Like, it's a big, wide, deep, got your legs wet crossing it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, he's on the other side of the creek in that meadow, probably with a bunch of hens and jakes, like every other turkey we've been hearing. I'm wasting time up here on this ridge. And so I'm like, what,
You're
what?
getting down on the situation.
Yeah. And we've been there for about 20 minutes, and I'd yelp a little bit. Gary yelped back there something, nothing. And finally, one time I got on it pretty good. Cut and yelped, nothing. I sit there and I said, man, we need to move. I need to move. Like, he's down there. We're wasting our time. We need to move. And so I make up my mind, but I'm like, need to act like I have some sense and get up stealthy, because it's so steep. When you stand up, you can see down, And so I'm like, I'm on a big old oak tree. So I stand up, straight up, real slow. I got my shotgun in my left hand. I stand up and saying,
I think something's about to happen, Brent.
I hear the music.
When there's a normal standing up, you don't do this.
So
I'll play the didgeridoo in the background. No. Come on.
So I stand straight up, and I go to grab, and I can see down the ridge a good ways, and I go to grab my binoculars, my right hand, and I put my right hand on binoculars, and out he pops from behind a tree and
told you.
Full strut 50 yards.
Ooh.
But I'm just standing there flush like this. He's none the wiser. He's walking towards me. So I just stood there, and he's like kind of angling towards me, walked all the way into 30 yards, went behind another tree, and I just went whoop, and he popped out on the other side, and I said hello.
With your shotgun.
Yeah. And Gary he said, man, when all it was over, he said, man, I saw you stand up, and then I thought I knew what you were doing. And then I saw you reach your binos and stop, and you were just standing there. I said, what is he doing? All of a sudden, your gun snaps up, and I said, hunt, boom.
It was over.
How many turkeys have you shot standing up?
More than you'd think, but none that like I've done that like that sneaky stand up and check. Yeah. I do that because I've seen it blown so many times.
Oh,
like
man.
that exact situation. Yeah. But every time since I started sneaky standing up, sorry, I was like, all right, there's nothing there. Let's move. I stood up and that rascal was coming up the hill. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
So you thought this thing is messed up. Or, you know, we've screwed this up.
As soon as when he popped out and I mean like a half second there, sure, but he just kept walking. He never broke strut. When he popped out from behind that tree, he kind of came out strutting, did one of those "where's that hen" kind of looks, but he never knew.
That's good.
That's awesome. Hey, you know what? I just remembered today, the day this podcast comes out, MeatEater on their Clips YouTube channel has my hunt from Tennessee from last year coming out.
Oh, cool.
This very day.
Nice.
And on that channel is also your hunt from Missouri last year.
Yeah.
On I believe it was opening day in Missouri last year.
Yep.
Where you killed one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We killed that turkey before breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
It was right off the roost and pow.
It was fun to watch.
Oh yeah. It didn't take long. Me and Isaac.
Mm-hmm. Man, my hunt in Tennessee last year was I said on the video, I said it was one of the best hunts I'd been on. You know how you're kind of just pumped after you kill one and you like think it's the best thing that ever happened, and it probably was. But on the video, I said it was the best turkey hunt I've ever been on. But we had worked. It was opening day, and we'd messed around with birds all day. But still, at 4 o'clock, I was still hunting, and I won't spoil it, but basically killed a bird at 4:10.
It was an eagle.
After watching him. I learned a lot. And you probably won't see it on the video, so it's not a spoiler alert. But I cut at this. I didn't know the bird was there. It just was on this little ridge point, looking off into this draw, and cut real hard. And at 4, well, actually, it was. It took 30 minutes, so it was at 3:45. Turkey gobbles like 400 yards, and we're right on this point, and he's way below us in some flat ground. And I just say, I'm just going to sit right here and see what he does. Sat down. 4 or 5 minutes later, he gobbles again. He's half the distance, and I think I yelped at him. Yelp at him again. He cuts me off. I mean, it's feeling good for a 4 o'clock gobbler, and the woods are so open. And this is what the video is hard to see. The woods are so open. I can see probably 120 yards through these open hardwoods, and the turkey probably gobbled 3, maybe 4 times, and I finally see him out there at about 120 yards, and he's just in full strut, just spinning circles, just thinking about himself. And
selfish, like giraffes.
And he never gobbled though. He never gobbled. If I hadn't been able to see him, I would have thought something happened. You know?
He's gone. Yeah,
left. But just because I could see so far, I just watched him. And rather than coming straight to me, he's strutting and drifting, like Elton John's Tiny Dancer, And
that's immediately what I think of.
He's kind of spinning, and he's veering off to my left, but kind of getting closer. And I know what he's going to do. He's going to end up losing interest and getting around the point of this ridge, and then probably making a big circle and just complicating things, And I would watch him, and I'd call. Like when he was 120 yards within sight, had a decoy out, and he would pow, but he never would come. Finally, when he got to the point where he was about to like go around the point of another ridge, I just said, man, something's got to happen here. And I started scratching the leaves. And he's probably now 90 yards, but not coming in. Scratching the leaves, and then I just hammered him. Like once I saw him, I was just slow playing him.
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking, he's coming. But when he was about to get away from me, and I mean, it's getting late in the afternoon, I'm scratching the leaves, and I just hit him hard. Pop, 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 pop. And man, he gobbles and just breaks that strut and just comes straight to me.
Beeline.
Jumps up on a log and get him.
Got him. How close?
Probably 25 yards. Ooh. It was a good hunt.
Man, I hear stories like that, and my head goes to the old school calling mentality to sit down, cluck 3 times, and wait for him to show up. I'm not saying that's not. Pocket. I'm not saying it's not effective. It worked for a lot of people, and it can work sometimes.
It worked for Wayne Cox.
You can't. it works for some folks, but I say that especially because the whole, Wilbur, his whole career, the calling too much and calling too loud accusations he got. I was like, man, I'm not saying it doesn't work, but you can't say that what you just described. That works too.
Yes.
Depends on the turkey.
The first time I hunted with Lake and the only time I really hunted with Will, we went on a couple-day hunt. I remember you saying that Wilbur would leave Yelp marks on a turkey.
He does.
That's funny.
So the Wayne Cox, do y'all know who Wayne Cox is?
Mm.
You guys, if we were doing a quiz on the Confessions of a Former Outlaw, Wayne Cox was the old man that taught Johnny Johnston how to turkey hunt.
Yeah.
I didn't expect you to get it, but he was the old man that used a piece of slate and a goat horn.
Yeah.
Now, how excited can you get on a piece of slate and a goat horn? I kind of got my Johnny Johnston.
That wasn't even close.
I thought it was pretty
He
good.
thought it was close.
Yeah, but he's nice.
He's just trying to be nice.
Hey, today is the 2nd year anniversary of the release of my podcast.
Is it really to this day?
April 21st, the
2 years.
day we're recording it. It released. You and I were in turkey camp in Missouri.
Is that the day it came out?
That's the day it came out.
Really?
That's pretty cool.
Who would have ever?
I don't know what I
balloons or
said, but I
something.
know what I was thinking. I thought there's no way this is going to work.
I never thought I'd be here. I figured I'd be in either jail or HR by now, and I've escaped both of them.
2 years.
2 years.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? Beargrease is now 4 years in April. I hadn't really thought about it.
That was released in April too.
Yep.
Huh.
There you go.
Yep.
This stuff started to get serious, ain't it?
Yeah. Getting tired of talking is what I'm getting.
No,
It's not true. That's not true.
Not true at all.
Well, so this episode, I'll give you a little context. This episode is called "Confessions of a Former Outlaw," and this episode also is playing on the MeatEater main feed, which is unique to Beargrease. We've never had a Beargrease podcast that played on the main MeatEater channel, so a lot of people hopefully listen to it that maybe wouldn't have. And the point of me saying that is that I had called Steve Ranella after actually I had Josh and Lake and I were turkey hunting. And so we had to drive somewhere, and I sent you this draft, and I said, "Hey, listen to this, and just tell me what you think." and Josh had listened to it, and this podcast was different than anyone I've ever done, and this is the way I described it. I've done a lot of outlaw stuff. I've done stuff with undercover agents who were talking about people that they busted that broke the law. Russ Arthur and my buddy in Ohio, R.T. Stewart.
Yeah, R.T. Stewart.
I've done a podcast on Donnie Baker, who is a good friend of ours these days.
Yep.
Great guy.
Good fella.
Who committed a crime and was punished for that crime.
Yep.
And he talked about it. So I'm painting the different scenarios in the little capsules that we've talked about outlaws. We did the Genuine Outlaw series, which was one of my favorites that we've ever done.
Yeah. And a lot of people's favorites.
Yeah. And that was on two guys that are now deceased. So it was on some guys that are no longer here. And it was about their lives. And they interviewed their family and their friends. This one, the Johnny Johnston episode fits into a different category because Johnny Johnston's still alive. And he was talking to me about stuff that he was not caught on. And that it was setting with him was like wildly interesting. I recorded a 3-hour conversation with Johnny. You heard, if you listen to the episode, you would have heard, now the episode was 54 minutes long, but the actual Johnny talking was only like 35 minutes. So, I mean, we talked a lot to get what we got. And I just called Steve Ranella and was just like, "Hey man, is this okay for me to put this out?" because I'm always conflicted about, when you talk about outlaws, are you glorifying it? And I think if I were playing devil's advocate and I was not me and I was someone else talking about me, I could probably make a pretty good case that I am glorifying outlawing.
I don't think so. But we'll disagree. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that. And number two, I'm always I'm not just saying this is the truth. Behind the curtains of Bear Grease, my number one concern is the people that I interview in whatever case it may be. Because media sometimes exploits people. Period. I mean, and I never want to do that. So if I talk to somebody, I don't want to just exploit them to get a good story that's going to damage them. And so here's Johnny, who he's never listened to a podcast before. And he doesn't know me, but multiple people around him know me and have come to him and said, "Hey, you need to let this random guy come interview you." Well, what's he want to talk about? Well, probably about, the negative parts of your life. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot of different things. Johnny could have told me all the stories about his life where he did good stuff, you know? And so I'm always really concerned. So that was part of it too. When I talked to Steve, I was like, listen to this. And is this going to damage Johnny? And what also behind the curtains, that's what the Bear Grease render is. I called some high ups in the Oklahoma Game and Fish, and they didn't listen to it. They didn't put their stamp of approval on it. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But I just said, I'm going to do this. What are the chances that this is going to hurt this guy in some way? And basically, I mean, when you're talking about stuff that happened that long ago, it literally is a different time, and there's legal things that, statutes of limitations and stuff.
Right.
So, but it was stressful, and that's why Steve Ranella got involved in that. And Steve was just like, "Hey, man, if it's interesting to you, and people aren't going to think you're glorifying outlawing, if it's interesting to you, it's going to be interesting to other people. This guy's really unique. It's a great story."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Do it." And then it ends up, it plays on the MeatEater main feed, which was really cool. Really cool. But I don't know how to start the conversation other than just like general thoughts, Brent.
I think up until that one came out, I would have easily, hands down, had a top 3 that I could have argued were my favorite. And this is not even close. This one is so far above the rest of them because of the story. The story to me is everything. I mean, that is my job, telling a story. It's your job, telling a story. But this story is as complete a story that fits in the wheelhouse of what my feelings are, what I hold important. This one is by far surpassed anything else that
Really? I'm pretty surprised to hear you say that.
No, it's not even close. And I don't want to get too far in ahead of myself here, but the redemption of the whole thing is great. I've listened to it twice, and sometimes I'll listen to them more than once on up here, so I'll have something fresh in my mind. Like, okay, I need to remember this when we talk about it on the render. I need to, because I listen to it when it comes out, and then the next week we're coming up here. I listened to this twice because I enjoyed it, and while I was thinking, it was just enjoyable listening again because I got so much out of it.
What about before the end, though, when you didn't know what was going to happen? Just with, like, did you find yourself frustrated with the way this guy was?
No. And that was totally different. I was one of the dissenters on the Genuine Outlaws podcast. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at all. And
why was this one different, though?
just the humility of the man talking, and the way he talked and the way he spoke about it, and he was not doing it flaunting the law. He had an issue with living turkeys, not getting away with killing them. Is
that why you didn't like Louisdale and Charlie?
Yeah,
because they were like flaunting it in the law. Like half of now they were turkey hunters and loved to turkey hunt, but half of it was
getting away with.
Some portion of it was that their identity was that they were outlaws.
Yeah,
and that they were breaking the law and couldn't be caught.
Yeah, and I'm not casting anything ill towards them or their families or anything like that. I don't want people to take it that way, because different folks is what makes this world up. They would not have been someone that I would have told a story about or enjoyed to be around. I don't think.
Yeah.
This guy right here, I would share a cup of coffee with in a minute, and would like to hear. I would just like to hear how he thinks about. I know what he thinks about turkey hunting, because I like to turkey hunt too. I want to know what he thinks about cows feeding in the field, or what he thinks when he sees a redbird singing in a tree. I want to know something else, because I identify real close with what he's talking about chasing turkeys.
Mm-hmm.
It was very moving to me. Man,
I'm actually surprised. I think sometimes, and I know you pretty well, Brent. And it surprised me what you said, but partly because I'd boxed you in to thinking that anybody break these outlaw stories you just didn't like. I mean, and if you're new to bear grease, Brent spent his career in law enforcement, and so, and I heard Brent one time. I think I can say this. Brent spent his life risking his life chasing drug dealers. And today, when he drives down the road and he sees a dispensary on the side of the road, it kind of gives him a little conflicted feeling.
It does.
He could have been killed in the line of duty in some of the crazy stuff they did. And then today, you can it's like going to Walmart to buy marijuana. I mean, it's not quite that easy, I'm told. But
and before we get the hate mail in that I'm against anything, you got to remember it was against the law, and it was my job.
Exactly.
Period. Yeah. And I do not apologize for it.
Yeah. And that's just like rational. But it's interesting because when you said that to me, it kind of put it into perspective, and it's like, yeah, I can understand then why when you hear about these lawbreakers that you're just like, no. I mean, I don't care how cute your story is, Clay, or how funny and entertaining these guys are. I just can't get behind it. So that's why I thought that you wouldn't like this one either.
No.
I mean, I knew you'd like the end, the redemption. I mean, that's hard to argue with, but.
Well, I spent 32 years and 7 months seeing even the best people in the world on their worst day. So you don't get to see the whole person. This story told the whole person's story. And the man, and no one told it for him. You didn't tell his story. He told it. You just handed him a mic, and he spit it out there. And it was good.
Who goes first, Lake or Josh? Lake had a little bit of a different. Lake heard one version, which I don't know. It's kind of hard to. I don't know. We'll start with Lake.
I gave some thought to how the best way to articulate my thoughts on it, and I feel I have to tell it in like two factions because I feel that's the way his story went. I think if you look at his story, the first part of it, I know we're talking about Johnny as an individual, like a person. This is his story, but I would bet, I can't speak for the rest of the country, but for the Southeast, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, all that stuff, Johnny, when he got to talking about hiding guns and getting dropped off and giving zero cares about limits on turkeys or when seasons opened, I would bet that most of the folks that listen to this from this region either knew somebody that was like that, or at least heard stories that was someone that
or are that guy,
or they are that guy.
Yeah.
And man, it's probably because it's no secret how I feel about turkeys and turkey hunting. When I hear that kind of behavior, I just don't like it.
Yeah.
I do not like it. I'm not endeared to it. I don't care if they're crawling them and shooting them and not yelping them. I don't care if they're the best turkey caller in the world. And I thought about that for a while because I'm like, man, why do I feel that strongly about it? And the best reasoning I can give you is because I would argue now, because it's the thing, if you were to isolate some of the things that Johnny said, talking about how he feels about wild turkeys and calling them in and hearing the gobbling, if you were to isolate some of the things he said, I would argue him and I feel very similarly about the thrill of hunting them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the difference,
I like what he's doing here. He's being articulate. He's going to split it up like a surgeon. This is good.
So the difference is, it's like, I have those same temptations. When I go listen at turkeys and it's late February, early March, don't think it doesn't cross my mind to go, man, it'd be fun to yelp that turkey up right now.
Yeah, because I'm going to be the only man in the woods.
Or there's been times where it's during season and two longbeards come in, I shoot one of them, the other one sticks around. Don't think it doesn't cross my mind to shoot the other one, or I'm walking out with him, I hear another one. I have the same temptations. The difference is I don't do it because I feel so strongly about the resource, and the people that taught me how to turkey hunt feel that way. So when I hear that, I there's no other way to say it. I just don't like it. I don't like that attitude. I don't like treating the resource that way. But when you get to about 54 minutes into that podcast and he talks about meeting the Lord and it changing his life, then him and I can find common ground. Because while I've never been a serial turkey poacher, Lord knows I've sinned in a lot of other ways. So up until minute 54, I was like, I don't like this. And then it hit minute 54. I was like, man, I love this guy. So that was about the arc of it. I was like, oh.
Well, let me ask you this. I don't think you differ. You did a good job of describing it and breaking it down like these little segments maybe. I mean, I'm not a serial turkey poacher either. Never have. And I feel like we would be like within a degree of each other when it comes to, the same when it comes to obeying the law. So it's not like when I hear stories about Johnny Johnston killing turkeys out of season that I'm like, go Johnny. Yeah, that's cool. So I guess my question really inside the episode is why do people find it so? It's not entertainment. It's not like a gladiator fight. It's just interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I find these outlaw stories very interesting, and I think it's because we grew up being taught to follow the law so stringently that I was of age before I knew people broke the law. My dad was just like so adamant about it. And it's like, who are these crazy people that break the law?
Mm-hmm.
Intriguing, 100%. So it's not like I'm rooting for Johnny, but you didn't even enjoy it up until that point. You were just mad, really. Yeah. So you were just like, this isn't even cute.
I grew up hearing stories like that about folks that just like the limit meant nothing, the law meant nothing, the season dates meant nothing, and that was always like, you don't do that. Like the resource means too much to be treated like that. And so, like I said, he had some stories that were unique to him, but the overall like temperament of that side of his story, I'm like, I've heard this before and I don't like it.
I hear you. What about, I think when I hear a story like Johnny, people fairly often will hear me do a story on bear grease and they'll go, I know a guy just like that you need to come interview. I would say if you let me interview 50 outlaws, one of them I would have permission, like internal permission to highlight. And Johnny, throughout his whole story, I saw admirable traits of personal responsibility, openness and honesty, Like, so, like, I saw a bunch of other stuff encased inside his stories about outlawing.
Mhm.
I mean, I just think, and I mean, I guess I'm telling you why I like the guy and why I think most people might listen to it, and nobody's agreeing with like it was okay for Johnny to kill turkeys because he's honest about it. Like, no, that doesn't make it right. But I think most people that done what he done wouldn't come on the bear grease and be as vulnerable and just like, I don't know why I did it, or just quite that open about it.
True, and the other point is it's the folks that I'd been around grew up here and had stories similar, maybe not as egregious, but you'd hear them talk, and I heard very few that had the redemption side of it that Johnny had.
Right.
Most of them that I heard or knew of, even if they'd hung up that way of living, it was just because, like, man, I can't slip around like
They
that
just
anymore.
got old.
Or they're like, it's just too much to risk these days.
Yeah.
But, more like, it wasn't of like, I turned from it. I realized I shouldn't be doing that. You know?
Yeah.
So that was like very different.
Well, and I did not know much about this story. The way I framed it up in the podcast was true, is that all these people had talked to me and just been, you've got to go interview Johnny Johnston. And I would ask every single one of them, why?
Did you notice that there were the three things that he talked about doing that were bad, he had no control over?
What do you mean?
He drank to excess. He didn't have a beer or a whiskey drink or whatever it was. He was an alcoholic. He used dope. Regardless of how much he used, it was illegal. And he hunted turkeys with reckless abandon. So the three things that he talked about in there were things that he couldn't control himself with.
Now, I don't understand when you say couldn't control. I mean, you just say it was like
He had no
addicted.
self-control.
No, there was no self-control over it.
Yeah. Now, that's not a justification, though, for being able to do it.
No, what I'm saying is there was something missing in his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got you.
And then when he got it squared away at the redemptive part of his story, that's why he's not ashamed to talk about it. That was the feeling that I got.
Yeah.
Because he is unashamed now. Because he knows he's been forgiven. He don't care what Clay Newcomb thinks.
Yeah.
He don't care what I think. He knows that he's been forgiven and he's rocking on with his life as he should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always use that old analogy. People laugh, but I mean, I used to pee in the bed. I don't do that no more either, and I can say that and when I say that, I'm talking about it wasn't like last week is when I was a baby, but I mean, that time's coming. That time's coming back soon, probably. But there's nobody sitting here that ain't messed up. There ain't nobody sitting here that ain't messed up on purpose.
Yeah.
His just happened to be dope, alcohol, and turkeys.
Yeah.
But he got all that squared away. And I could, hearing him talk, he was somebody that I would listen to. Number one, I never heard the word futility.
Yeah, I looked that one up and it didn't show up in my.
Nope. But I knew exactly.
You kind of knew what he meant.
Yeah. I knew exactly what he meant.
He used context clues.
Yeah, about the puzzlement that was causing him. But it was just a totally different story than any other outlaw story you've ever done.
Yeah.
For me.
I think too, if there were, and man, forgive me for like being a little defensive. I think I am. I think that Steve Ranella told me, he was like, you don't need to apologize for playing that story. But I still like kind of come in with like my hands raised like this. Johnny Johnston didn't come to me so that he could tell that story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like all that stuff has just been put to bed. It's not stuff he probably even cares that much about. Literally, he was a guy that when I talked to him on the phone, I think he would have tried to, if I was selling newspapers and he had money to buy one, I think he'd have bought one from me just to be nice to me.
Yeah.
I called him and was just like, hey, can I come talk to you? And he was just like, well, he literally said the first time, he's like, Clay, you're welcome to come down here. He said, I don't know that I've got a good story to tell you. I mean, he way undersold. He was like, I don't know that I don't know what we'll talk about. I don't,
Yeah.
And so it's not like this guy was knocking on my door saying, let's do a bear grease on me. I went down there, pried his arm to talk to me. And I think I can share this because it's just interesting, and I don't think Johnny would mind. But he did have some people that told him he shouldn't talk to me.
I'm not surprised by that.
Like just because it would expose him?
It was people close to him that loved him that were just like, Johnny, why are you doing this? This is dumb. Just like, why now? Like, you're 75 years old. Just let all that just go to sleep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And Johnny told him, this was after we had talked for 3 hours and we just had this pretty genuine connection for as much as somebody that's known someone for 3 hours could have, which I think is pretty legit. And he said he told this person that was looking out for his best interest, he said, the man told me it was going to be okay, and I believe the man. Talking about me. I mean, like, I tried to, like, when I first, it's always an awkward conversation the first time you talk to somebody, especially about something like this, because I was just like, hey, I want to come talk to you about your turkey hunting. But I had to tell him what I was after. I said, I also wanted to hear about kind of, about some of the illegal stuff you did. I mean, it's not like it's in the newspapers that he did illegal stuff. I mean, Johnny is just like, people love him where he's from. If there's one thing I know after this podcast came out, is how supportive the world is around him of the people that just love Johnny. And so, he's like, well, okay, if you want to talk about that, I mean, sure. And anyway, that's the hardest part of all this. If there's any magic inside of getting people to tell these stories, it's just like that first like connection with them and trying to say, hey, I go around and talk to people about bad things they've done, and I'd like to talk to you.
Yeah,
Lake, if like 20 years from now I call you and I'm
it's like Maury Povich.
Now what'd he do?
Oh, he had a talk show back in the day where this would uncover every dirty deed everybody ever did.
What did he do?
So if I call you one day and say, Lake, I'd like to
poacher.
do a legitimate bear grease on you, you should be like, what have I done?
What do you know about me?
Yeah. Don't do it, Lake.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that I really like the podcast, and I think I was kind of with Lake at the beginning, like listening to it, and then I heard the end. But I think the issue is it's not a story of a reformed poacher. Like, that's not what it's about. It's the story of two different people.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's the story of what can happen when a moment of redemption hits.
Mm-hmm.
That whole thing is just, that's not him anymore. Like, he literally sat there at his fire pit, gave his life to the Lord, and became a completely different guy. And the fact that a man who is 60 years old, who's been a drug addict and an alcoholic for the greater majority of his life, can immediately stop, shows power beyond himself. And so I think in a sense that Johnny probably looks at that like that was a different guy, because he's not that guy. I mean, you hear him talk. He's like, I don't do that anymore. And it's not this like, he didn't get to the point where he felt like he needed help not poaching anymore. And he tried and tried, and eventually he quit poaching. It happened in an instant. And that's to me, like, one of the most honorable things that a human being can do is to transform like that. Mm-hmm. And that's worth highlighting to me.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like the podcast at all glorified his poaching. I think what it did is it set a stage to show who he is now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. The Louis Dale and Charlie was really entertaining. It was fun to listen to, but this is a story of two separate men. It is a redemption story, and to me, that's what makes this podcast so good. And I think there's probably a lot of people out there who don't necessarily know that that's available to them. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who live in regret. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've regretted in my life that I've done. But that's the great thing, is about an encounter with God like Johnny Johnston had radically changed this man's life.
Well, there is no,
that's incredible.
There is no worse feeling than being at the lowest point of your life and knowing that there is no further place to go, no further depth to go. And in an instant, when you make up your mind and get your heart right, there is nothing that feels any better knowing that you are on your way out of it and you ain't never going back.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been there, and I know what that cat's talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good.
Man, Johnny's, what I appreciated about him is his ability to articulate like his experience of being on the mountain at daylight and the moment of his salvation was powerful and super genuine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I can say this and the world will know what I'm talking about. I mean, like, the fact that it played on MeatEater, and I wasn't sure how some people would have taken the kind of direct story of salvation, and I think what people responded to was just the genuineness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like he wasn't trying to.
Yep.
I mean,
you don't have to believe to understand what that man went through.
I mean, anybody would listen to that, regardless of what doctrine they have about life and eternal life, and they would be like, I believe that guy had a genuine experience that changed his life, and he told us that story, and hat tip to that just for human transformation. And man, that's why this story was so cool for me. Like, I called Josh after I left Johnny's house, and I said, man, I mean, I just was like on a high from talking to this guy, just because of how genuine he was. And I knew that we had something special. Also, it was one of the hardest ones that I've put together. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's not on there. And you know, Johnny's not perfect today, and he wouldn't say that he was, nor is that what he's trying to advertise. I mean, you know, how much of his story can we tell in, 35 minutes of his actual voice? I mean, this is a curated version of the story, honestly. Yeah. I mean, but it tells the truth. I mean, the story is the way that I perceived it,
Yep.
But golly, man, that's why I think I love stories like this, because it involves the things that we love, hunting and fishing, but it's so much bigger than that. It's a human story. It's the story of rural America. I talked about that in the beginning of the podcast, drugs, addiction, broken relationships. I mean, sometimes the stories that me and you tell are the good versions of rural America.
Yeah.
And we all know that there's a lot of negative stuff going on too.
Well, I even keyed in on the detail of, he talked about his dad knew about his turkey poaching and was like very disapproving. Like, son, you should not be doing this, and that just made it more real, made it, because like you said, whether it's turkey poaching or something else you shouldn't be doing, I could relate to that part of it a lot. When you're doing something that, like, you're like, I shouldn't be doing this. I know I shouldn't be doing this. My father doesn't approve. And that just made the redemption part of it mean more, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was, Josh, what was the most entertaining story?
I love the cold open. I had it explained to me in court, not in the woods, that I think I was killing turkeys at the wrong time.
I think I killed a turkey at the wrong time and day.
Yeah, I loved that little the way, and then he ended it, and that's how he explained it to me.
That is one of the, if there was an all-time best bear grease just moments, that would be in the top 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he said when tomatoes are ripe, he said where
Yeah.
I come from, when tomatoes are ripe, you pick them. When the potatoes are right, you dig them. And when the turkeys gobble, you go get you one. Or when the turkeys are right, you go get you one.
Yeah.
That's where we lost Lake.
Yeah. We lost them in the
'cause
cold
if you-
open.
When I told you when I listened to that draft, I said I'm gonna start using that next time I hear a turkey gobble and go, "Whoo, that tomato's ripe."
Yeah. Hey, if there's anything that I did, like now 2 weeks after this podcast came out and we finished it just like right before, if I had like 6 months to build these podcasts, they would probably be slightly different than just my initial blow at it, you know.
Right.
And I was pretty heavy-handed. Giannis Putelis thinks that I over host, like, which would be
Overhost.
relevant for me and you to talk about. He just thinks
Let the story tell the story.
Yeah, basically he was like, I wish you'd just let Johnny talk and you wouldn't have even been on
we
there.
call it clay splaining.
Clay splaining.
Yeah,
That's what Mark Kenyon called it.
Clay.
And I want you to watch, Josh. You're around him more than any of us. When he goes to clay splaining something, his right hand does this right here. Just remember.
I'll watch.
Well, and I want to talk about one thing that I kind of went on and on about because it was interesting to me, where I said that Johnny's excuse today is that it was a different time, and I mean, if you would have the right to just roll your eyes at that. I mean, it's just like, give me a break, you know. I mean, poaching, you know. As long as it wasn't like in the 1800s and there were no laws.
Right.
I mean, you could make a case. I mean, we did this thing recently with the Buckley Foster about the progression from market hunting to this conservation mindset we have today. And, you know, there were game laws in this part of the world really in the 1870s. And then it went further and further and further until the creation of the Game and Fish Commission in 1915. And I mean, game laws have been around for a long time. It's not like they just happened in the 1970s and, you know, guys like Louis Dale and them were just like, oh, game laws? But so, you know, but at the same time, I mean, it was a different time. Do you think that's fair? And I explained over and over too much about the things. Back in the 70s, there were a ton of turkeys. Back in the 70s, there was, I mean, turkey hunters like we know today were almost non-existent. I mean, I mean, for what my dad can tell you about it, everybody can tell you about it. In that part of the world, in the 1970s, you go turkey hunting in the national forest, you're gonna have it all to yourself.
We all are a product of our communities, our environments, you know, and it is never an excuse, but I think it could be a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because anything that you can do, get ticketed for, and pay a fine and go on, that means it's legal for a fee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right or wrong.
Yep.
So, and it just wasn't looked upon. He had it explained to him by that judge. And from then on, it was like, okay, I'm still going to do it, but I'm going on. And there's an old joke. It's an old police joke where a policeman stops a guy for slowing down at a stop sign because no one else was coming, and he pulls him over. He said, "What are you stopping me for?" He said, "Well, you didn't stop at that stop sign." He said, "Well, I slowed down. What's the difference?" He says, "Step out of the car." He steps out of the car. He starts hitting him in the head with the flashlight. And he says, "Now, do you want me to stop or you want me to slow down?" So when he realized the
then
difference,
he found $5.
when the difference is explained to you, and it's all on you, then, you know. I'm not saying the man didn't understand what the laws were,
Right.
but the norms of the societal norms of where he was at, you know, it was a big deal.
I think too, you know, we talked about at that point in Johnny's life, there were a lot worse things happening.
Yeah.
That killing some turkeys was the kind of the the lowest rung of his egregious violations. You know?
Yeah, probably.
And I remember when we were doing the Paddlefish Wars podcast, and we were talking to Jeff Brown, Captain Jeff Brown, the Oklahoma ODF. I can't remember. They're Game and Fish.
Big guy in Game and Fish.
Yeah, and I remember when he talked about busting the guys that he'd spent a year chasing after, and they just got a slap on the wrist, and we're like, did that bother you? And he's like, man, there's people out there getting murdered. There's kids out there getting abused. It's like, this is, in the grand scheme of things, this is pretty low on the things that are going to hurt society.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to steward the resource that we have for generations, killing turkeys is not as high on the rung as some
it
of the
really
other
bothers
things.
me to think like that, but it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it bothers Lake. I mean, it bothers me the same way. I mean, it's like, I want turkey poachers to go to jail.
Yeah.
Same.
Like, I want them to go to jail. But then when you actually like start looking at the big picture of life, and now anybody that's sitting in this room, or maybe even anyone listening to this podcast, you are the minority of the world that you probably care for wildlife, and specifically game species of wildlife, more than the average person.
Right.
I mean, so it's like this thing that we've focused on, and we've said this is very important. I mean, and the truth is, humans don't need a wild turkey to survive. Now, Lake, don't get mad at me. I'm playing the devil's advocate because I believe that, I mean, we've chose a lifestyle and a way of viewing the world that we're like, it actually does. It's really important,
I think I'd die if they did.
Yeah. What was that quote that I sent you the other day?
Oh.
It said,
something about a world without birds is a bird I don't want to exist in, or something like that.
Well, that was the essence of it, but it said humans can't exist without birds.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, and it was this like metaphorical kind of like just beautiful saying about this person's expressing their love for birds. But they were also actually talking about how birds make the world go round, eating insects and keeping them off crops and all this. But basically, they were like, humans have to have birds. I sent it to Lake because he likes ducks.
So I'm going to take, I hear the point you just made. I'm going to take it, put a little bit different spin on it, right?
Okay.
So I do agree, like, definitely about the being a product of your society. Because I have thought, because I've crossed paths with guys that are my age and younger that I don't know if they did anything as, killing as many, but guys that were willing to break the law for wildlife and hunting stuff. And it would cross my mind to think like, man, if I didn't have a main turkey hunting mentor like Keith Polk, or followed up by Will
Shout
Primo.
out to Keith Polk.
For real.
Every week.
Will Primos, guys like that. Would I have the same views that I have, the same values? But then talking about like, I definitely hear like low on the rung, grand scheme of society. But man, when I think about turkey hunting, just turkey hunting, I could go down this direction with a lot of different stuff, but we're talking about turkey hunting today. Some of the most impactful relationships that I've had in my life, some of the most impactful friendships. Like I know Keith Polk because of spring turkeys. And Keith Polk has been, other than my actual father, I don't know if there's been a male figure that's been more impactful than Keith has.
Good human being.
So when I think about turkeys and turkey hunting, and I attach such a high value to that resource, of course I'm thinking about the hunting side of it, but I'm also thinking about the people that I know and the friendships that I have because of it. Heck, my whole career started because of a love for turkey hunting. So when I see that get abused, that's why it strikes such a chord with me.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's the way we all feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a great way to say it. Yeah. We've fixated our life where this is like something really important, and I think in society that is really important, because the only reason wild turkeys are still here today is because of hunters who loved them. Essentially, that carried them all over the country, putting them out in new places. You know, the story of the wild turkey in North America, if you don't know it, is pretty astonishing. I mean, numbers got down super low, I don't know, around the turn of the century. I mean, the people that brought it back, it wasn't the tree huggers, it wasn't rich people from someplace, it was turkey hunters.
Yep.
You know, that's like, so yeah. So in that case, we do have a right to be like, don't abuse our resource, you know. But I always think about it from a historical revision standpoint, though. Like when you like look back at a time and you just go, man, that was so bad. Because there may be people today in America that are poaching turkeys like that, and I hope they get caught and I hope they go to jail.
Yeah,
I mean that's the way I feel about it. But I don't think it's as common today as it would have been back then. And I do think it was a different time. I mean, like, man, and again, I'm not trying to justify what Johnny did, but I'm just saying 50 years ago, rural Oklahoma was a different place than it is today. And there has been this transition from these guys that had this resource to this like hyper fixated conservation hunter that's kind of arisen today, where we're like, hey, it's not cool to break the law.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to say was I think that we've done a good job as, you know, game and fish agencies and ethical hunters to make obeying game laws cool. You know what I mean? That it's not, you know, there used to be this outlaw mentality. Now it's like we don't do that. Like that's what's going to keep us from having hunting. And I think there's been a good mind shift about that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we've got to protect it if we're going to have it. So anyway,
I don't want to name his name, but this dude that's like a known poacher that has like a poaching in like social media presence. Are you aware of that? You were aware of that guy? I don't even want to say his name.
I wouldn't. I dare not say his name, but yeah, I'm aware of him.
Is that common? That was the first time I've ever seen anything like that.
No, it's not common, and it honestly, it's something that we've hashed out before, and it's honestly not as prevalent. He's not as prevalent now as he used to be. But
that was the thing our friends sent us this morning.
Yeah,
first I ever saw that was at the first for
Yeah,
good.
Never heard of that.
It's just this guy that like his shtick is that he's a poacher. You know,
A social media guy.
Yeah. And frankly, I can't stand him.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
I
think
don't like him either.
anybody could, and that's where people get confused. Someone in jest sent that to me.
Yeah.
That person shall remain nameless.
don't look at me when you say nameless.
It wasn't you, but it was just like somebody like you. Yeah. And they were like, "Why don't you have this guy on the podcast?"
Gordon.
And it was a joke, but it's like, no, that's not. I mean, that is not cool.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just like very fine line.
It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
Yeah.
No integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And man, you know, there's a big difference between somebody that's doing that and somebody that makes an honest mistake and gets a wildlife violation.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I probably a pretty high percentage of serious hunters that are have received some kind of wildlife violation just because of sheer exposure.
Really?
100%.
In this chair, in this room?
No, well, me.
There you go. A quarter of them.
Yeah, I'm like Johnny, buddy. Hey, in 20 years, if you young podcasters out there, if there's some little 7-year-olds out there that's going to have a podcast one day, come talk to Uncle Clay about 20 years. No, I've talked about it on this podcast. I got to
shooting deer at night.
No, that's not true.
Accidentally.
That's not true. That's not true at all. It was a squirrel wanting waste violation for a single squirrel.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about it on the MeatEater podcast.
Yep.
Years ago, and it was a massive deal in my life. Not because I got in trouble. I just went and paid a ticket.
I remember it. It was a huge deal.
It like broke me down for like years. Truly did. And there's nothing to say that I couldn't get a violation tomorrow, but just on accident, stuff happens. But I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's good people that have stuff happen to them.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Knock
Does
on
Lake
wood.
agree?
Oh yeah.
Let's get the Lake. Lake is like the fly fisherman of turkey hunting.
What does
I
that
wouldn't
mean?
go that
It means
far.
the like elitist, like like sinning and spinning and sinning. Like you like being like, oh, did you catch it with a spinning reel or with a fly rod? I would say in the turkey world, Lake holds the highest standards.
I wouldn't. There'd be some people that would argue with you on that.
Yeah,
But yeah.
Well,
What a render.
I love these conversations. It's just interesting to me. I mean, it's just interesting, and it kind of makes people talk. One thing that Steve Ranella said to me the other day is he said, hey, even if people didn't like it, he said, if it makes people talk about hunting conservation and makes them like flesh out more of their doctrine for why they do what they do.
Yep.
I think a lot of times we just have things that are formed and we don't really know why, or we don't really think it all the way out. And a story like this makes you think some of it out. And I'm still wondering about it because, I mean, I don't know. I still even go back to maybe the most interesting thing about Johnny, and I think this is the reason that I'll probably still do outlaw, maybe not outlaw stuff, because you don't have to be an outlaw, but I think Johnny is more honest about his life than a lot of clean cut people that I know.
Yep.
I mean, I just think he's honest. I appreciate that.
Who doesn't like a story with a happy ending?
Yeah.
Had a pretty fantastic ending.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, anything in closing, Brent? Anything you want to talk about?
Pertaining to the episode?
Anything in the world?
I like a tart cherry pie
Okay.
more than like sweet. I like it tart.
How do you get that?
I don't know. My wife cooks them, so you'd have to ask her.
Did you put mushrooms in it?
Not that I know of.
Lake, what about you? Closing thoughts, comments? Me and Lake are going turkey hunting.
Closing thoughts.
But you know you ain't gonna be poaching if you're going with Lake. So sorry.
Mark that off your list. Closing thoughts. Guess, like I said, Johnny was about in the worst kind of ways you could ever be, and he found redemption in the
It's
way,
hope for everybody.
and by way of the Lord.
Yep.
Same way I found it. So think on that. I'm sure that there's as many people who listen to it, especially somebody on the bear grease feed. I mean, the MeatEater feed. Somebody listened to that story that probably could use a little redemption.
Yeah. Yeah.
Josh.
I'll take that one.
Yeah.
For my elitist ways.
Man, if I could, if the Bear Grease podcast were just guys like Johnny Johnston, Joe Rogan would be knocking on my door wanting to be on the render.
Yeah.
I've had some people are like, why don't you do more of those?
People dig the Outlaws, man.
Well, or just people stories. You
Yeah.
know? And I mean,
Human
it's
interest.
they're hard to put your hands on. I mean, and boy, when you get one like Johnny, you just it's special. I love it. Closing thoughts, Josh?
Nope. I don't have anything.
Nothing.
We're going to go kill some turkeys. I'm going to Kentucky. Y'all are going to stay in Arkansas. We're going to go bring home some birds. Keep watching on social media. We'll put pictures up.
Keep watching. All right. Well, thanks for coming up, Brent. Lake, thanks for being here. Josh, appreciate it. And keep the wild places wild, because that's where the bears are.